So one thing I should have mentioned before as well, and I wasn't recording all that stuff before, these sessions are recorded. So the little black Death Star looking things up here, I'm not sure if they're still microphones or it's just my one out the front, and it's just the screen that gets recorded, not you guys. So don't feel too bad. Although I will have a favour to ask in a couple of weeks for you guys, but I'll get to that a bit later. So, doesn't have me being on here at the moment. So, Firefox is the preferred internet browser for Learn, which is the Tafe. Everything at Tafe's stored on Learn. So if you guys just want to jump onto Firefox, and it should come up with, so if you just hit the Windows key, sorry, and type in Fire, and just pin that to your start bar like you did with Revit before. And hopefully we'll hit, so if you just want to jump to the Tafe. So the I guess before I jump into that, another couple of things. So you don't have to come. I understand it's Thursday nights. We're about to have Mad March. Work pressure gets in the way. That's why we record the sessions. Hopefully you guys have got my email address. If not, I'll put it back up on the screen. Thankfully, all the Tafe email addresses are pretty easy to work out. But so everything's on the portal, or it's on Learn. You access that via the portal. So up on the top here, you've got Portal. So if you want to click on that, it'll come in with a login. It'll be the same login you logged into the computer with.
Just the email address?
Yep, so this one will be the email address. You can log into the computers with your student ID number. Yeah, you got to use your email.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. Your email there and your password again. So has everyone managed to get in? In the process of getting in?
Oh, I'm using this. Yeah.
Oh, it's Thursday. It's Thursday 14th.
It's not working.
On yours?
Oh, it's this one.
So, first things first, if you scroll down the bottom, you can register to reset your password manually, so I don't have to do it, or if you're off campus, I'm not sure how it works, I just call IT when my password expires. So if you want to do that, maybe we'll do it in the break. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Office 365. And bear with me, I have to remember how to do this because I only do it every once or 4 times a year. So we're going to forward, because how many email addresses do people have these days? I've got at least 3 that I have 4 that I check regularly. So to save you having one less email to check, we're going to forward your Tafe email to your personal one. So is everyone sort of? Oh, mine does look different, doesn't it? I keep forgetting that. So you want to choose Outlook, and you may have to set up the time zone and stuff.
I'm stuck on the terms of use. Can't see it in the training. You have to get 5.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably. Yeah, late 9, but half. Yep. So I do forget that step because I don't have it come up. Yep. So does anyone know how to forward their emails out of Outlook?
Yes.
Yep. If you know how to do it, feel free to go ahead and do it. So for those of you that don't know, once you're in Outlook, you go to the gear and down to mail. I'm hoping. And then down on the left, it'll come up with another dialog box, and under accounts, you go to forwarding and start forwarding emails. And then you can put your personal email address in there. And save it. I wouldn't worry about otherwise you'll forward his emails to you. So does everyone manage to forward their emails? And just say, yep. So,
Sorry, Russell. I think I've received
oh no, so on in Firefox.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, sorry. Give me a second. Yep. Outlook. And select the time zones. Adelaide 9 plus 1.5. Here. Oh, you might have to keep this close. Here. And then mail. And then over here. Forwarding. Start forwarding. So the reason I'm asking you to do this, if class has to be cancelled, moved for any particular reason, or if I found something cool that I want to share, I'll probably send you an email via your Tafe email address, not your personal one, because you guys are not Tafe students, a lot of your personal details aren't on the system I can access. So this is the easiest way for me to do it. So just give me 1 second.
Mail?
Yeah, mail. And then all. Yep. Yep. Repeat start forwarding. Okay, we might try again next week. I'm hoping. So Tafe hasn't actually started for students. So next week when the lecturer is doing this for everyone else, I'll work out there might be a problem and fix it. Just close it. Yep. So. And you can close that now. So you can close your Outlook. Just do occasionally check it from time to time. Sometimes it doesn't work. To be honest, I'm probably not going to send you an email in the next 8 weeks about class. The other thing about class, obviously, I'm coming from Norwood. Clipsal's about, not Clipsal, whatever they call it now, Central Loop 500, is about to start. So even though it says 6 o'clock, I'm a bit flexible when we actually start. So don't feel like you need to get here for 6 if you're going to be pushing traffic and things like that. 6:15 is probably about, 6:10 is probably about when we'll officially make a start, because obviously no out the road here, we've got the South Road Darlington continuation, which is causing havoc. So who came via South Road into Tafe tonight? Turn down at Celtic Avenue and come around the back is much easier than going up and coming back, I think. That's the way I come. So just a FYI. If there are any likely to be any roadworks or road closures, as a part of being at Tafe, I get a notification a couple of weeks before from someone that works here that gets the notification from whichever the mob is that's doing it, and I'll let you know. I don't think there's going to be too much interruptions that already haven't happened. Hopefully they finish it this year, because it's pretty painful for anyone that lives south trying to get to town at the moment. So, has everyone's on the portal? So if you jump back to the portal services, if you haven't already. So you've got Learn here. You've also got My Files. So Tafe has been really generous and given you a whole 50 megabytes of server storage to store files on your computer or on the server. You can access those files on the portal. To give you an idea, a Revit file can range anywhere from generally about 5 meg to about 100 meg. So the files we're going to do in the next 8 weeks will probably sit around that 5 meg mark. I did work on NRAR. There's probably not too many drafties in Adelaide that didn't. Some of the zones were around the 80 meg, and computers would have still struggled to open them now. We used to call it the spinning wheel of death when you had to open and close a zone, because it took about half an hour to open and about half an hour to sync and save and close. So, thankfully.
Are we allowed to bring our own hard drive?
Yeah, that's where I'm getting to next.
Okay,
so, can you guys bring a hard drive or USB? I'm assuming they don't make 8 gigabyte ones. It's probably stepped up to the next whatever multiple they like these days. Sort of things, just to save you work on. And then the other thing as well, if you guys can grab the same computer next time, Revit will start up a little bit easier and sort of thing. So unfortunately, you're stuck next to the person for the next 8 weeks, sort of thing. So if you want to jump into Learn now. So I've got a couple of extra things here because I'm a staff member at Tafe. But don't worry about that too much. So this will bring you to Learn. I always have to remember. So this is your Learn dashboard. If you're doing any other courses at Tafe and they have a Learn module or Learn website, this is probably where it would be. Has anyone used Learn before? No. I think when I went through Tafe, it was Moodle, so it changed. I don't know when. So on. Just close that window. That seems to be the trick, and then Learn. So what is? So you guys in the search type in Revit fundamentals, Revit fun. I'm hoping it'll come up with the short course details. And then click on that. You guys will be asked for an enrollment key, which is CRN3778SC, which is on the board, just in case you guys don't remember it. Just type in there, Revit. There's a couple of different Revit courses, so yep, if you put your key in, yes. Just close that one. Just close this window. Yep. You might have to stop that again. So everyone's managed to get to the landing screen of the website. So this code you only have to enter once. You won't have to enter it in ever again, which is always a good thing. One less password to remember. The Revit architectural fundamentals. Yep, that one. And put in the CRN. Yep. One thing I will ask of all you guys, like, because this is such a big group, if you see someone struggling and you've grasped the concept I'm trying to tell you guys, can you just lean over and help out? Just there's 16, 17, actually only 16 because someone's not here. People, I'm not going to be able to get to everyone, and generally quite often most of the questions are the same, which I'll grab all your attention and work through it that way. But just if it's like one-off things here and there, just feel free to ask someone else. So everyone's on now? Oops. So you've got this. So you got this here. So the class recordings, as we do them, will come up here. Sort of thing. So just to give you guys a bit of an overview, before you start, is basically what we're going to do every week, or what we're going to cover, some of the topics and tasks, and any exercises we're going to cover. So you can see tonight we've covered off logging onto the computers, WHS inductions, accessing Tafe portals. I don't know what the ABS orientation is. So this course comes from a student side stuff, so some of the extra stuff might be there. Obviously, we've done our Office 365. So as a TAFE student, you have access to an Office 365 account while you have a TAFE account. I've given you guys the enrollment key for the Learn site. So now we'll go on to discussing software at home. So, has anyone used the educational Autodesk versions of software before? Website? Yeah. So, because you're a TAFE student now, or you're a student, Autodesk will actually give you a 3-year version of a student version of any Autodesk software, which is cool, for free. Not so much of an issue currently, but Revit is not backwards compatible. So if I have a project that was started, so let's take NRAR for example, they would have started modeling NRAR in probably 2000, probably 10. They upgraded it to 2013 or 2012, I can't remember, it was a while ago now. And it stayed in that version until the completion of the project. Because some of the changes that happened between 12 and 13 proved too much work to go back and fix. I believe there was an issue when they went from 16 to 17. All of the text in the file messed up. And then when they released the first hotfix, they had fixed that problem, but it doesn't help us in the industry going around for 3 months without a fix. So you're just stuck in 16 and didn't use 17 if it was in that project. So 2020, Autodesk being American, they don't actually release the year that it is when it is the year. So 2020, which seems really weird to say, will be out probably in April. March, April-ish. So not an issue for us, and if you do continue at TAFE, TAFE will only have 2019 on the computer until 2020, which will and then they'll upgrade to 2020. So there are instructions here on what you need to do to sign up for the Autodesk educational community, which you just need, Russell's set this up, so you just need an email address. Doesn't even have to be your TAFE email address. You'll get a verification email, and then you can download the software. If anyone has issues downloading a large download, I think Revit's 6 or 7 gig download the full version. So if anyone has issues, we'll try and work something out, because IT at TAFE has removed the C drive from everyone's computer, or access to the C drive. So previously in the other room we had 2 computers with it on the C drive and all Autodesk stuff that we sort of teach at TAFE on it, so you could take a copy. We don't have that facility at the moment. So you can download it at home, and then use it as a trial version if you want, or you can use your Autodesk educational community serial number they will provide. One thing I will say that is really important is down the bottom here, which I don't know why it's down the bottom, it should be at the start. Who uses a Mac? Revit does not work on Macs. So there are instructions on how to do this for like convert, put parallels or something on your Mac here. On your Windows computer, who's running Windows 10 at home? Is anyone?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think
Most people. You need to go in and set the region and language to Australia and English Australia. So if you download Revit without having it set to English Australia, it will generally download the content for the country that it says. So it'll generally say American and American English, or English American, or whatever it is. So it'll download imperial and metric template files and things like that. So, or it might not download any, like it'll download the program but not any of the other stuff, which we'll get into later. So this is one to check before you actually download anything and install. Or more install it, but yeah, because so it'll download 7 gig, let's say, of program. You'll install it, and then it'll download another couple of gig of content. It's a painful program to install, but thankfully Google exists. I'll put my hand up and say I use Google a lot more than I should at work, because someone else has had an issue. You may as well not rack your brain over it for a day. And then you can activate it. So that's the instructions there. If you are running a Mac, there are instructions here. I have decided never to go down the Mac path because Revit uses Windows, and a couple of other software programs I use Windows only. So I'm sorry, guys, you'll be on your own with that one. So that's installing it at home. I will follow up next week about getting, even if I have it on my hard drive, the download file, and you guys can copy it off. I might copy it to the desktop on another computer, because I've only got one spare one in here, or a couple next door if there's no classes. So hopefully that is all the boring setup stuff out the way. So there is a learning resource that we sort of vaguely follow in this course. It's a book that comes from out of America. I think this book itself is about $100 plus shipping. They do an ebook, which is probably about $100 minus the shipping. These guys are really good. They tend to write the fundamentals guide on every year. Hands up who learns via reading stuff. Oh, 2 of you? Good. Congratulations, guys. I'm not a learner, read it and do it person. I'm very much a visual, watch it happen on the screen, watch it happen on a video, then do it myself. You are only going to learn Revit by breaking it. When you break it, or you have a boss cracking the whip, when you get a project out and something's not working, is I find times that you actually learn stuff really well because you have to. So we are going to do a couple of exercises out of an older version of this book. They probably haven't changed in a couple of years, just the tools have a little bit. And then we'll just go, I'm going to run through it on the screen, and then you guys can do it and ask questions. So that book is there. There is usually, or there has been, I think we're waiting on the 19 book to come. Oh, there's the. So there is sort of like a sample of the book from 2017. This one, it's good because it gives you, it breaks a lot of these processes up into like part 1, part 2, part 3, and provides you a file for part 1, part 2, part 3. We don't have those files to give out, so we're going to do them from scratch. So, what is BIM? Does anyone want to take a stab and answer the question of what is BIM? No.
What is BIM?
Oops, sorry.
BIM is very much talked about in the building industry, but what is it really? What is it used for, and who should use it? Some say BIM is a type of software. Some say BIM is the 3D model of buildings. Others say BIM is a process, or that BIM is nothing more than an organized collection of all building data. BIM is all of the above and more. Now let's see BIM explained in layman's terms. When it comes to BIM, everything begins with a 3D digital building model. This model, however, is more than just simple geometry and some interesting textures added to it for visualization. A true BIM model consists of the virtual equivalents of the actual building sections used to create a building. These intelligent elements are the digital prototype of the physical building elements such as walls, columns, windows, doors, stairs, etc. that allow us to simulate the building and understand its behavior before the actual construction begins. Now let's see what a BIM model can be useful for. 3D visualization. Of course, the most basic use of a BIM model is for creating realistic visualizations of the planned building. Your BIM model helps your design decisions by comparing various design alternatives and for selling your design to your client, the local community, and other stakeholders as well.
So I imagine that's what most of you want out of this, particularly the interior designers in the room. You're able to sell your design to a client, which we can do in Revit, which is fine.
Change management. Since data is stored in a central place in a BIM model, any modifications to the building design will be automatically replicated in each view, such as floor plans, sections, and elevations. This not only helps in creating the documentation faster, but also provides stringent quality assurance by automatic coordination of the different views. Building simulation. BIM models contain more than just architectural data. Information about the different engineering disciplines, sustainability information, and other characteristics can be easily simulated well in advance of actual construction. Data management. BIM contains information that is not visually represented at all. Scheduling information, for example, clarifies the necessary manpower, coordination, and anything that might affect the outcome of the project schedule. Cost is also a part of BIM that allows us to see what the budget or estimated cost of a project might be at any given point in time during the project. Needless to say, the data put in a BIM model is not only useful during the design and construction phase of a building project, but can be used throughout the entire building life cycle, helping to reduce the operation and management cost of buildings, which is significantly more than the entire cost of construction. With all the benefits BIM has to offer, don't let your competition get to BIM before you do. Visit www.graphisoft.
I'll stop that there. So to me, that wraps up BIM really well. And for me, particularly when I first learned Revit, it was all about the cool pictures and the fact that I didn't have to draw a million lines on a page or on a screen, sort of thing. In the last couple of years, there's been more focus on the end product. You build the building, you hand it over to the client. The client spent a lot of money because, let's face it, BIM's a lot more expensive than CAD because a lot more time is spent in the office than on site when they build stuff and pull it down, as they used to do. Well, on big building sites, that's what they used to do because they realised we put the ductwork up, we've got to get plumbing through here, pull it down, build it again. That's what BIM stopped. Always say stopped, reduced 99.9% sort of thing. In the real world, ideal world, I should say. So in the last couple of years, there's been a push to get the model to the client so they can do their facilities management from it. So they can know this projector here is a model this, without having to go, particularly for remote people, without having to go, someone might ring up and go, my projector's died. If Adelaide was 500k away, what model projector is it? Sort of thing. They at least know that from the model rather than having to send someone out to inspect it, sort of thing. So that, to me, is actually my interest these days, is what do you deliver to a client and how can they use it for the life cycle of the building. So the differences between BIM and Revit, as you might have seen before I stopped it at the end of that video, that was produced by Graphisoft, which you guys know is ArchiCAD. Revit is produced by Autodesk. They essentially aim to get to the same goal of a BIM model. They're just two different ways of getting there. Same as Apple and Microsoft, Android and Apple, different preferences. I don't know about you guys, but there's not that many ArchiCAD users in Adelaide. There's a few, but I know I think in WA it's a lot more popular, and I think the Eastern Seaboard is more Revit. So it's just I think Revit was seen. Autodesk are a bit like Microsoft. They buy companies and shelve, or a bit like Google, I should say. They buy companies and shelve them. So when Revit started, it wasn't owned by Autodesk. Autodesk bought it and kept going. You can see here under this umbrella. So when Autodesk first bought out Revit, there was architecture, structure, and MEP as three different versions. Now it's all just the same version. There's also Autodesk Ecotech, which is a energy efficiency modeling program. Autodesk bought that, and it has stayed as Autodesk bought it probably 5-6 years ago now. They haven't done anything to it. If you're lucky enough to have a license, it probably doesn't have support anymore and things like that. Green Building Studio is their new energy efficiency sort of software platform. That's all based on the cloud. Yeah, that's pretty much it about. So Revit is BIM, but sort of another one to throw in there as well is Navisworks. As I mentioned before about the file sizes of Revit, so an architectural model for NRAR would have been about 80, 90 meg, we'll call it. The plumbing model, 80, 90 meg. The ductwork, MEP, or the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical, again, similar sort of file size. You try opening all 3 or 4 of those models on one computer, you're going to have a flaming pile of computer on your desk. So Navisworks cuts down a lot of the fancy stuff, and the pictures, like the textures and things like that, and allows you to actually clash detect in one model. I've never actually used it, so I know it does it. I know a lot of people do use it for clash detection and modelling of things that are happening. Does anyone live south and have seen the anti-throw protection screens go up on the Southern Expressway the last probably month or so? So I know one of the guys that I sort of studied a little bit under out of Tafe was actually employed by whoever put those screens up to model those. They had a point cloud model, which I'll touch on a bit later, of particularly the Seacombe Road Bridge. They put all their cranes and things like that in Navisworks and were actually able to show the client what was happening at any one particular stage in the project. So they actually built everything 3D before they put it on site and sold it to the client, I think with a state government sort of thing. So that's Navisworks. You wouldn't necessarily do that in Revit. Another big project I believe has had some Revit use of late is the Darlington continuation that's done in Revit. Bits of it, I think. I think that's been a bit of a mix mash. There are other BIM programs, BIM capable programs out there. These days, ArchiCAD's one, Rhinoceros or Rhino is another, which you may have heard of at uni. That one looks really cool. I just don't have enough time or care factor after sitting all day to learn these other programs. So I'm also studying at the moment my certificate for in teaching and education, so I can continue my job at Tafe. So I've been pretty busy with that and full-time work and this for the last 6 months. So we might as well jump into the Revit user face now. So these may be a little bit different because I don't think Russell's realised that the user interface has changed. If there's an extra, can you let me know? I'm going to take on fast back. So everyone's got Revit open. So those of you who have used Revit before, does this screen look really different? Yeah. So 2019 came out with the existing sort of startup screen, and then 0.1 they changed it. So Autodesk are trying to get, one of the other big benefits of using Revit is collaboration. So you can have someone else doing something completely different than building somewhere else. So they're trying to push everything to the cloud as where everyone is, so people are getting more money out of us. That's my thoughts. They're just doing it for more money. So you can see here the user interface is now sort of open new models, and then families open new, and then you will have a list of recent files down here, and then it's also separated up here, models and families. So we're going to primarily focus on models, not families. I'll touch on probably families next week a little bit. We won't be creating any families and things like that. And then, because this is the first time I've opened it, I've got exactly the same as you guys. So the more projects you work on, you'll have more images here, and it just basically loads whatever you worked on last. So mine at work has got the last 4 or 5 jobs I've worked on, and it's like closed. So if you guys want to go to new model, sorry, because that's 2 different spaces now. You'll get a new project dialog box that comes up. So I will rewind for 1 second. I just have to double check. So there are 2 flavors of Revit on this computer. There's Revit and there's a Revit viewer. I'm hoping this will open up in a second. Okay. So when you open up Revit viewer, it'll come up with a Autodesk Revit viewer warning. And up in the top, it should have a viewer mode. If you have this open, today it doesn't matter, but never use it. It looks, it acts, it breathes, it sounds exactly like Revit. It does not allow you to save, it does not allow you to print. So thankfully I've only had 1 student accidentally use it one night, and they only lost the night's work, but you can imagine, in fact my boss has done work on the weekend in Revit Viewer and gone to print it and gone, or save it and gone, I think there's an issue with my software. I'm like, no, I think you just used the wrong software. So don't use it. I think it only comes down when you it probably comes down a lot more these days. It was only available at Tafe, as an education thing a couple of years ago. It can be good if you want to send a model to a client, so they can have a look at it. They can do whatever they want, or maybe not a client, but like an external consultant. Yeah. So I click on new, and then you got here, so you got new project. So Revit will come with a couple of template options. So you have a template of none. I have never used it. I suggest you never use none. Construction template, architectural template, structural and mechanical. They are basically the same file, just has different predefined views. So an architectural one is going to be more about your architecture. The construction one has more stuff about footings, footing heights and depths and views, and the structure one is pretty similar to that, and mechanical is obviously looking more up in the ceiling, so all the views are higher, sort of thing. So we just want to choose the architectural template here, and then you have create new slash project, and then you have a project template. So we're just going to click on project. I'll touch on project templates a little bit later. For those of you working in an office, you may have your own templates already. for those of you using Revit and wanting to use it in the office, I highly suggest you start developing some of your own templates, sort of thing. It definitely speeds up pretty much everything, particularly when you have different font styles and dimension styles and all this sort of stuff. You can put that in your own templates. So this is the, I don't have a copy of that, user interface of Revit. Sorry, I'm just double check if mine's the same. So let me just check my old copy is the same. Yep. Does anyone want to have a guess at what number 1 is? So they're tools.
Measure?
No, so what, I guess it's a bit, the photo's a bit hard, but it's a bar there. Like, so all those tools are sort of like, they make up tools. So that one is a quick access toolbar. So that one has the tools that you use readily, like quite often. So it's got save and open and print and measure and dimension and 3D view and things like that there. So does anyone want to have a guess at what number 2 is?
Number 2?
Yep. Down the bottom. Yeah, it's.
It's telling you the command that you.
Yep.
The shortcut?
So it's the status sort of like this. These are the names I've got here. I don't refer to them as these sort of things outside of this class. So that's the status bar. So it's really good to remember it's there, and you'll learn why in a couple of weeks. So just these things here, write them down on your piece of paper, and I will refer to some of them as the weeks go on. Probably more your quick access toolbar and your options bar, which is pretty hard to see at the moment, which I just gave an answer. So hopefully you guys work out which one I gave you. Number 3. So up in the top left. So do you want to have a guess what the name is?
File tab.
Yep, file tab, that's exactly right. And then number 4. So if you've used Word, Word went into this before Revit did. So I don't know what Word refers to it as, like Microsoft Word, but any guesses, any ideas? Just throw one out there.
It's the ribbon.
Yep, that's the ribbon. It's number 5, which is actually really cruel because you can't see it on my screen at the moment, or on that sheet I've given you.
They're kind of the tabs of the views that you've got open.
Close. This hasn't been. So this is using the 2018 user interface. So they have changed it. So they have changed a few things from 18 to 19, which I will tell you one thing in a minute, which I love, but I can't do it because I have one screen. So number 5 is the options bar. So if you have a quick look at my screen, notice how I've got modifier place wall, and then I've got height, unconnected, 8 meters, location line, wall center line, chain, offset, radius, join status allow. You'll also notice you've got all of these options. So I'll try and not stand here as well. So they're all mimicked here. So what does number? Surely that goes on chronological. What's number 6?
That's where you can type in and make the changes.
Yep. So that's your properties palette. So that is where you change parameters and things like that and constraints. Number 7 has got the name on it for you, so hopefully someone can work that out. Yep. So, yep. You're going to spend a lot of time in your project browser because that's all your sheets, all your views, basically pretty much everything in the project sort of thing. So number 8. Yeah. Yeah, your workspace, your page. It's technically it's your model space
Oh yeah.
sort of thing because it's where you do your drawing,
Drawing.
and then your sheets something else. But yeah. Number 9. So if you use CAD or later versions of CAD, it's probably the same thing. So it's your navigation bar here. So you've got, you can pan around. I don't think the mouse likes the yellow thing that's around my mouse for this, so I can't zoom in or rewind. And then you've also got your zoom, so you can zoom in with the mouse, like into a section. To be honest, I very, very, very rarely use those tools. I just zoom in with the mouse wheel and zoom out and hold the mouse wheel down to pan around. And when you get into a 3D model, which we will a bit later, you can use that to move, like shift and control. Has anyone used SketchUp a little bit? Yeah, so you know how I always have to think how you do it because it's just so second nature. But you hold shift and you hold the mouse wheel and you can pan and tilt around and things like that. So you can do that in this as well, but I tend to find the mouse and keyboard heaps easier. So we get to number 10. Oh, so number 10. What do we reckon number 10 is?
The recently used tool.
Be nice. So if that was it's a control bar, but what do we think it's controlling?
Visuals.
Yep, view. So this is your view control bar. Now, I know number 10 only points to the bit down here. There's also some view controls on the bottom right. So down here you've got your detail level, so you can set it to coarse, medium or fine. So if I just draw a wall in, at the moment my wall is coarse, so it's a brick veneer, or what is it? It's a double brick wall, but you can't see any hatching. So good at a preliminary stage when you sort of don't know what the construction is, or if you're just mocking up an interior space sort of thing. Medium gives you a little bit more detail, gives you the hatch. For a wall, fine doesn't do much extra, but for things like windows and cock valves and plumbing, it'll actually show you more detail. So you may only want fine on for something, medium on for some things, and fine for others. So I might show you, we might have a break in a minute. We might have a break now, but that's, after I've gone through this, that's your view detail, or detail level, sorry. The next one is your visual style. So you've got hidden line, wireframe, shaded, and things like that. You've got shadows, sun paths, crop region, highlight crop region. So that's there, and then I'll go through these ones when we get to them in a couple of weeks, or next week probably. So if we guys, sorry to quickly put a break on you guys. So if we guys want to just have a break, be back probably about 20 to 8, if that's okay. I just got to run to the toilet. So a really good question. I've just been asked. So what do you do when you accidentally close, because let's face it, it will happen at one time, either your project browser or your properties, and you have a screen looking like this. So this is the idea I'm trying to teach you guys over the next particularly 4 weeks while we get the skills, and then hope you can do a couple of exercises which you'll ask questions and I'll run through a bit of stuff. So up in the ribbon, we've got architecture. I'm not going to name them all. Annotate. I'll name the ones we'd probably use the most. Architecture, annotate, insert, view and manage, and modify. It's also really annoying. There's two modify buttons in Revit. I will try and remember to say modify ribbon and modify button. So we've got modify up here in the ribbon, and then we've also got modify in the button here. Modify button is just basically escape. Modifying the ribbon allows you to do some other tools, which we'll run through next week. Anyone want to have a guess? Anyone have any idea of where you go to get the view properties and project browser back? In view? Yep, perfect. So this is what I'm trying to teach you. So you've got to break it back down to some simple steps. So I want to put text in. What is text? Text is an annotation. So is there an annotate button? Cool, there is. So we go there. That's what I'm trying to teach you, because that's how I certainly still work when I get really stuck. So we also use, there's two different types of Revit out there. So there's the full version and there's LT, which is light. So has anyone used AutoCAD Lite or heard of AutoCAD Lite? So it's the same thing, it's just missing some fancy cool stuff. The cost, I think, is about $600 a year for the light version and $4-ish more. I don't know. I haven't looked at buying a full version. You can't buy these anymore as well, by the way. You can only rent them. I think the full version is about $4-5 grand a year purchase. So, or to have on your subscription. So there's quite a bit of difference there. So we only use the light version at work. So it's the same tools, just laid out a little bit differently, which is really annoying. So you go back to the View tab. Does anyone want to have a guess of where you go now? So what was that bit of paper I handed out and said 2 words for before?
Property color.
Yeah, that's the one. So that piece of paper I handed out was explaining the user interface. So down on the very far right, you've got a user interface button or drop down. You can click that, and properties and project browser come back. So that's how you get them back. I think you can also right click and get properties and get your project browser as well. So there's generally more than one way to do something in Revit. The next thing I'm about to hand you out is the keyboard shortcuts, or some of the keyboard shortcuts. There's a lot in Revit.
Excuse me. I actually have both of them in the same window. So I'll have to.
Oh, you got them. Yeah, I'll run through that in a minute as well, actually. So I generally don't remember where the buttons are. I just use most of the keyboard shortcuts. For most of the common tools I use, like dimension and detail line and measure and align and things like that, which probably mean nothing to you at the moment, I use a keyboard shortcut. Who used keyboard shortcuts in AutoCAD? And you've got to press enter at the end of the command, don't you? Or you could, or spacebar. You don't have to anymore. So if you just want to put dimension, and the keyboard shortcuts are really easy to work out. Dimension is DI. So generally the first couple of letters will generally be the keyboard shortcut. So the project browser and properties palette, or properties browser as well, they've actually made it a lot easier to dock. So you can move them on your screen. So if you guys, so I work with 2 monitors at work, have 2 monitors at home. I'm restricted here, only having 1 projector. So I only have 1 screen. So I tend to work like this, except for the fact they're docked over the top of each other. I tend to work like this, so I have my project browser on one side and my properties on the other. In reality, at work, my project browser is on my second screen at the very edge of it. And then one thing that I loved when they brought out 2019 is, if I just show you, this is, I'm only going to be able to show you this way, but you guys can do it a bit differently. So I'd have it sort of like this. Imagine this is over 2 screens. And then you can now drag your views out of your one screen and put them on your other window. So if you guys maybe just want to draw a wall, just it's not like this. So if you go to the architecture tab and wall, and you can just draw something sort of in the middle, and then up in the quick access toolbar, there's a thing that looks like a little house or a dog kennel. I tend to think it looks like a dog kennel. That will open up your 3D view, and then you can put that on your other window, other screen, sort of like that across 2 screens. So if you guys want to have a bit of practice at doing that, and that's how I'm going to get you guys to generally work when we're not using a PDF. So you can just drag it out of the ribbon here and put it onto your other screen. So if you guys want to have a bit of a play, you've got to hit the oh, I've lost my camera. This really doesn't work across one screen. Yeah. And then just click and drag. So believe it or not, if you want to have a bit of a play with moving your project browser and your properties around as well, they have improved how they dock. So they're a lot easier now to dock on top of each other and to move into sides. So you get a highlighted blue section when it's ready to be docked. You can also overlap them, so they're on the same thing in case you're using like a Surface or a laptop and you haven't got much screen real estate. So it's just a case of dragging them over each other. And you'll see a highlighted blue box come over. Trust me when I say that is a lot better than it was previously. And don't worry if you don't get this too much. You'll probably work out how you want to work and set it and never do it again. But it's just knowing that it's there. And you can also, I don't know why you would do this, have your project browser like this and your screen really small. My idea of having my project browser or properties on another screen is so my workspace is the biggest it can be. So it's a lot better than it used to be, but still not perfect. So does everyone like the fact I like the fact that you can put a 3D or any other view on another screen. Previously, you were just locked into the box that I have on my screen. There was a workaround, but it was sort of poor because you have this big 2-screen gap in the middle. So I just now want 3 screens. So I can have my workspace, my 3D, and my emails or PDF on my 3rd screen. I don't think the computers at work will run that, so unfortunately I'm stuck. So that is probably, I might quickly touch on this stuff. So in Revit you can link in models. We'll cover underlays later, but the biggest one here is the pin. Down the bottom, it's not very big, so you might be able to see it on your computers a little bit better, but it's down here. And mine has got, next to it, it's got layers and faces with a little cross over it. Oh, so underlay and faces, sorry. So basically what the cross means is you can't select an underlay or a pinned object. So if you pin an object and there's a cross there and you're wondering why you can't select that object, or you've pinned something and you can't select it, or it's an underlay and you can't select it, always come down here and see if there's a cross. I will remind you again when we get to it, but I generally forget that's there. It wasn't generally until I started teaching you guys that, oh yeah, that's there. Oops, I did that 2 weeks ago on this job because it was annoying me. And when you import CAD stuff, it's pinned. So you've got to generally unpin it and move it and then pin it again. Which I do suggest, as you guys are learning, to pin things when you're happy with them. So unfortunately, Revit is a sort of program that you've got to know a lot of stuff to get the easy stuff out. And unfortunately, the really easy stuff in AutoCAD, so doing house drawings, like I don't know what easy stuff is in AutoCAD, it's really hard in Revit. But really hard stuff, working out roof lines and things like that in CAD, is really easy in Revit because it just builds you a roof, essentially. So it does, most of the time it's quicker, sometimes it's a little bit slower for some things. And I'll put my hand up. We do part eaves at work, trying to work out roofs sometimes with a part eave, so the facade's got an eave but the rest of the house hasn't. I could be on a roof for an hour and a half to 2 hours and go around in circles for a while to get the roof to work. So something like that can be a little bit difficult, but we're not going to touch any of that in the next couple of weeks. So roofs are easy in this course, which is good. It's just to give you the idea of what to do, sort of thing. So if you guys want to close our lovely project, you don't need to save it. I just shut my project browser. So I'm going to give you an actual project to open up. I believe it actually is a hotel somewhere in America. So, actually, good point. I did meet the architect that designed this house. He now works for Autodesk and was out here showing me at a seminar some really cool stuff that Autodesk now do for 3D visualizations, and like gaming is becoming into the industry a lot with VR and augmented reality and things like that. So that's an actual house somewhere in America that he designed and then allowed Autodesk to put up a reduced model of. So it's still the same design outside, it just hasn't got all the details and things like that in there. So if you just jump back to learn, and go to the short course the short course we've got introduction to BIM. There's a couple other documents that you guys can read in your own time. They're a bit out of date, so I don't tend to talk about them much. Go to the Revit short exercises, and then we want to download the Modern Hotel Final M and open with Autodesk Revit. So it's going to ask you to update this model. So if you have got an old project and you can install more than one version a year of Revit on your computer. So you could have, if you bought it in 2013, you could have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 on your computer if you have enough space. And if you only want to keep it in the previous version, and you've opened it like this, just say no, and you'll need to actually start the old version and find it that way to open it. Don't open it via like File Explorer, because it'll just open up automatically with the latest version. So we'll just go upgrade the model, which will take a little bit of time. Generally, the bigger size the project, like more megabytes per file, the longer it'll take to update. So what it's doing now is actually updating all the families in this project as well to 2019, which is a bit annoying because it's only in this project.
Sorry, Kevin, did you say upgrade or don't?
Yeah, upgrade this one.
Upgrade?
Yep. So if you do upgrade a model into 2019, let's just say you wanted to check a dimension on something really quickly on an old job, but you don't want to upgrade the whole job, and you just double clicked on it by accident, just don't save it, because then it'll just revert back to what it was before. So now that this is open and I haven't got my project browser, have a look at the project browser in this job and see how many sheets and views and all that stuff it's got in it. So you have to hit the plus, and you can see here, this is obviously not the full version of drawings and views for this project, but there's quite a few views already. So have a bit of a play around with the model. So it doesn't matter if you accidentally delete something, we're not going to save this or anything like that. One thing I will say just now, so there's a couple of exercises that we do out of America, and I've never actually bothered to check, I just have assumed. See how they've only got floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, floor 4, and no finished ceiling levels in here. So there's no level that says this is the ceiling. That's the Revit is built so this level, when you create this level, will automatically create you a ceiling plan that is 2.3 meters off of the level that it's drawn at. So all these floor plans and ceiling plans and sections are literally just taking cuts through the model. That's how you get your floor plans, sort of thing. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at it. So floor 1, I wish this was a touch screen, but has also got a ceiling plan that looks different. it's just it's the same model, just cut at a different offset of the level plane. When we draw some other projects up, I put a ceiling level in, just because that's how we seem to do things in Australia. Just get used to sort of navigating that. So you should.
That one? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So in that 3D view as well, you can also practice panning around and sort of inspecting the model. So I think it's holding the mouse wheel down pans, and then holding shift down allows you to sort of orbit around as well. Sorry. I will run through that a bit later. I just did it because I don't do it very often actually anymore now that I've got the ability to put something on the screen. Like when I'm done with the screen, the control went to 3D and a floor pan in the one thing. They spend all the time with nothing. So I really want three screens. I find it really frustrating doing all the PDF because I'm not reading or something like that, and then it's like overlapping everything. So you may have also noticed that in your default 3D view that it opened up with, it is, I always mix these up, it's orthographic, so the building doesn't taper off as it gets further away. This is the default 3D view, so this is the view that Revit puts in the model, in your project of your model. That's just the default. This is generally when I look at things in. I'm just so used to looking at it not being orthographic anymore. If you do want to change your view to orthographic in this one, you can change it to perspective. And it sort of changes. I always tend to just have one that's the camera view, like just to pan around a model and look at things and select them and see what they are. Has everyone got their default 3D view open? Or can have it? So that's either via the little house up in the quick access toolbar, or in your project browser under 3D views, it's the 3D in brackets. So the other thing in your project browser as well, which I didn't point out, is if you have a view open on your screen, it'll be bold. So that's the active view that I'm working in. It's like bold. So if I open up my floor plan, the 3D goes bold and just my floor plan is active, like bold now. Does anyone have a whole heap of windows open? Tabs across the top, sorry. Yep. So, what's it called now? It's close inactive tabs. So previously there was a close hidden windows button in the quick access toolbar. It is now called close inactive tabs. So up, it's the second tool in from the right. If you hover over it, it'll actually come up with the name of the tool and a little bit of a description about what it does. So if you happen to have, if I just open up a couple of tabs and want to keep my default 3D view open, you'll notice that mine's now not grayed out. It's a bit hard to see with the yellow over it. And if I hit that, it closes all the other ones. So 4:59 on a Friday afternoon, boom, close, save, done. See you later. Not that I've ever done that before. That's the easiest way to close a project, because otherwise you can imagine, I'm pretty lazy. I'll just keep going into here and opening up views. Obviously, most of the projects I work on don't have 8 floors, but I'll just keep going to here and opening up. I don't think it actually opens up another view. It takes you back to it now. But you can imagine you'd end up with a whole lot of views open if you've been working all day on the same project.
So question, you
Yep.
open a 3D view and you shifted it around, playing around.
Yep.
And it seems to save where you left it rather than
Defaulting, resetting back.
Can you go back to how it was, or does it
So
change?
this default 3D view, you could go back to how it was, but doesn't really matter.
Well, like for instance, there's a breakfast area or a hall that had a specific view.
Yeah.
Can you go back to what that was?
Where's that gone? We're about to create some camera views. So you sort of mean
If
you might have done that.
Now.
So this is the only time I actually use it because I haven't thought about finding a keyboard shortcut for it. I don't know how to disable the yellow thing which messes this up, like the cursor finder. But you've got rewind, and it'll actually give you a couple of views. I can't get to it. There is no shortcut, that's why. So if you do that on your computer without the cursor,
Yep.
you should be able to rewind
Back to where it was.
back to where it was.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you close the project and come back to it the next day, you'd be able to rewind it though.
Yep.
But to be fair, 3D view literally takes 2 seconds once you know what you're doing to make. So if you stuff it up, it's not that hard to delete it and start again. So that's really good work. Point of advice. I use sections a lot to draw my models to make sure my wall plates are aligned and things like that. I just draw it and delete it. It's literally just a throwaway thing. I hate saying throwaway in the society that we live in today, but it's just a throwaway section just to see one thing, and I'll delete it after, or I might keep it or wait till I get 5 and it's cluttering up my drawing too much, and I'll just delete them all, sort of thing. So, a section's just a tool for me to inspect the model, particularly trying to align floor plates, as you can imagine, is quite important. Cost lots of money if they don't align. Does everyone sort of understand, navigating the project browser now? I wouldn't worry about legends and schedules and that at the moment. Just the more the floor plans. One disadvantage is there's no layers in Revit. It's actually it's a bit annoying because the age-old debate about modelling plasterboard generally always comes up at some point. So I don't model plasterboard in our models. I generally, as a rule, and wherever I work, don't model plasterboard. We do, however, now model lightweight claddings like fibre cement and corrugated iron because it's a finish on an elevation instead of just a hatch pattern. And in a model, in a 3D perspective, you can still dimension to the stud only and just leave the top hats and that out of it. But we don't model plasterboard because there's no easy way to turn the plasterboard off. And it's only 10 mil, so it makes some of the stuff look even worse. Like your plans look a bit bad. ArchiCAD apparently has the ability, has layers, doesn't it? So you can turn that layer off. Yeah. One of my colleagues went to work for Burbank for a couple of months and then came back and they used ArchiCAD at Burbank. So she's like, oh, if only could do that. But
If you're doing a view and the wall's in the way, you can just hide that wall for that view anyway.
Yep. So I'm about to run you through how to create a camera perspective like this bathroom area one. Sorry, not bathroom, breakfast area. So we've had a look at our floor plans and 3D views. We've used our house or dog kennel to get it back to being the default 3D view. One last thing here, which I'll just touch on very quickly, is the section box. Sorry. So the section box allows you to cut away the building if you want to inspect it a little bit more. And one other cool function that I like, if I just go to a floor plan and let's say I want to have a look at this lift assembly, which is up in your modify tab under view, there's a section box. So if you select an element now and hit this section box tool, it'll actually show you the section box constrained around the element. So I've just selected the lift. So I've selected the lift, hit this tool up here, section box. And then it's given me this view of the lift. I believe that function was a plugin to Revit back when I was working on NRAR, so that would have been version 2013. It came in as a proper tool, so they obviously bought whoever developed it out and put it in. Select the lift. Yep. And then it comes up. So everyone sort of.
No.
So select the lift, and then up here you've got the section box. That one there. Yep. And then it gives you a 3D view of what's around it. So the other thing in the 3D view which doesn't mention on user interface is you've got the view cube. So there's predefined points on here that you can click on and it'll rotate your model to those points as well. So the section box is applied to your default 3D view. So if you're using your default 3D view to do other things, like I do, to turn that off, you just have to untick section box in your properties. And then it comes back to being the whole model. So when I was working on NRAR, looking at P-traps and S-traps and setting them up in the model were quite difficult. So we used to use that to see what they look like in 3D without having it was an automatic one like that, so you could just select something and it give you the section box up close to it. So in that sense, it's really good. Lift's probably not a good one to look at, but it's the one I used. So if you guys want to just open up your floor 1 furniture plan. Does anyone want to have a guess of why there is 7 floor 1 plans in here?
Because that's the ground floor, so you can have various levels of detail depending on whether it's the construction one, the one you're using to sell it, or
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty close. That's accurate, actually. So you can only put one view on a sheet. So if you need to have a furniture, what is it, FFP? Furniture fit out plan or a fire egress plan, you just need to have a duplicate of that view. You know, if your floor plan with like for a PE stage is only fits on A3, by the time you put dimensions on it, it doesn't fit on A3, and you want to have 2 plans, so the builder on site might only refer to a 3D plan, A3 plan, sorry, for like, you know, oh, this is where the the sink's going, and then you want dimension plans for the chippy, you can do that sort of stuff. So we'll run through that a bit later, but that's why this project has 7 plans for 1 level. Because if I went down to the sheets really quickly, I'm not going to bother looking at that because that's a bit confusing. So to create a camera perspective in a model that's already created, which we've got, you want to go to, where do you want to go? So we want to create a view. So we want to go to our view tab. And then where in our tab do you think we want to go? The names are down the bottom.
3D view. Yeah, 3D view.
No, so we one step back. So what section tools, the names are at the bottom of that, do we want to go to? So we're going to go to view and then create. Yep. So that's sort of what I'm trying to show you guys is got to break it down so it's really fundamental, like just the real basics. And then if it's not there, so if you want to say, if let's say I wanted to create a view, so I go view and create, and there wasn't a camera view there, or there wasn't, let's say 3D view wasn't there, that's when you might get a little bit worried and go, hang on, I've got to rethink what I want to do. But thankfully for us, this has got a 3D view there. You'll also notice that the 3D view has a arrow with a drop, which signifies a drop down. So does a call out, a plan view, elevation. So it's worth just keeping an eye out for the little arrow with the drop downs because they come under wall, component, roof, and floor, which we will touch on a bit more next week. But so we want to, there's other tools that are there. So we want to create a camera view. So if you hover over the camera button as well, it's got a little help thing here that will run through basically what you can do with the tool and how to use it. So creating a camera view is a 2-click process. So sort of, if you imagine it as a photographer setting up their tripod and then aiming the camera. So that's the first click is setting up the tripod. So my first view, I'm going to take it to the seats and the tables in our breakfast area. So I've clicked once, I've put the camera position there, and this second click is sort of what you're looking at and how much of it you're looking at. So I'm just going to point it this way. So I'm going to just do this now for just a second. So notice how I've clicked really short. Can I do this? Notice how my camera, that pinkish circle in the middle, is quite short. And then if I look at my 3D view, I'm sort of missing what's beyond that. So that's your view distance. They call it far clip offset in your properties over here. So at the moment it's only set at 8 meters, or 8, almost 9 meters. you can change that manually here to 20 meters. Oops. And it goes longer. And then I go back to my 3D view and I get the whole room.
That's a far clip offset?
Yeah.
That's in millimeters or?
Yep. So one tip here, it's Thursday night. I've been at work all day and all week. So one shortcut, so you don't have to think what 20 meters is in millimeters, is you can put an M, so 20M, and it'll do the math for you. It's my favorite thing, to be honest. So if you guys want to put a view in there. And then, so you've got your crop region. So I just remembered something that's different in 2019 as well now. So down on your view access, or view, I can't remember what it's called. Your view properties down the bottom. So you've got, at the moment, there's the hide crop region, and then there's like a light bulb in there, and the light's on. So your crop region is on. The one next to that is do not crop the view. So if I don't crop the view, I can now actually get a full model of the project, a full view. Unfortunately, that can't go on a sheet. So at the end of the day, we're still producing drawings for sheets. So it's cool, possibly for some walking around of a model and things like that. Sorry, I'll run through that. So the one next to the little kettle, down the bottom, is crop view. So at the moment, my view is not cropped. And then if the cross is there, it means it's not cropped. You can get the whole picture of the project. And I've messed that up. I don't know how to get rid of that. So because I can't rewind because of the mouse cursor thing, I'm just going to create another camera view. So 3D view, or create a view, create, drop down to 3D view, camera. So over in your properties as well, you also have a couple of different options under camera. So you can make this one an orthographic or a perspective. And you can also change the eye elevation and the target elevation. So if you want to look up at a building, and 1750 is probably about right for most people, ish. It's probably about right for me. But if I wanted to look, let's say, up higher, you can just change that to 2.5, let's say 2.5 meters. Or if I want to look down at something, I can say 1,000 meters, a meter, I should say. So you can tweak the views with that functionality. I would use that more than the shift and mouse wheel in a project, because you can mess a little bit too much with your camera perspectives and they sort of blow out and look a bit fish-eyed. So thankfully, now you know it takes 2 seconds to make another one. You can just create another one. I find the issue is sometimes I don't realise it's blown out and gone fish-eyed because I'm so used to looking at them that it's not till someone else goes, that looks really weird. I'm like, oh, that's right, it does. So that's creating your camera views. So basically, we're going to create 2 camera views tonight. So this one, and we're going to create another one looking into the atrium of this building. So probably from about the same spot, just looking out past the building. So take this one past. So you'll notice here that I've lost the little crosshair on my cursor as I've gone out. Does anyone have a guess why that might be? So I've gone past my view extent sort of thing. So at the moment, my view's over here. and it's only showing me what's inside that box. So I've gone out. It'll still click. You can still click there, and it'll create the camera view. It's just worth knowing it's there, and I will remind you again it's there in a couple of weeks when we create some more camera views. You can also then make these views bigger, so they encompass more of the area. And then you guys can have a play with the visual styles. Just don't use ray trace. So you've got wireframe, which is obviously a wireframe of all the building. Hidden line, which is what you've got generally most of the time. Shaded gives you some nice grey tones. Consistent colours gives you some really bad colours. And then realistic gives you what the photo rendered realistic colours of this project would be. And I will do ray trace on mine just to give you an idea, but it generally takes a bit of time to happen. So ray trace is like a render. The longer you stay on an image, the better the quality of the render gets. So as you can see, it's taken 10 seconds already to think about it and more. So I don't use it most of the time because we don't put colours on our models at work, but previous jobs I have, so I just generally use realistic or do a test render of the perspective I want. So if you guys want to have a bit of play with that, you can add colour and shading. You can also add shadows, which this one's got on, as you can see. So shadows is a little blue sphere with the shadow under it. It might have a cross next to it, it might not.
What are those rendering ones you do?
I wouldn't do,
No, not the ray trace ones.
so they're all under the same.
On here.
Yeah, the one there, just ray trace is the end one.
Oh,
So
okay, there you go.
ray trace. Yeah, so it's that little box there, that next to the right. So you've got wireframe, yeah, you've got all those options. So, yep. See out if you've got any questions. See how it's like that face the camera, and then this is sort of like choosing what you're looking at. And then so have a play with this stuff. So you can make this bigger. So see how blue up there. You can make that bigger. You can also sort of like tweak it so your eye is a bit higher and your target, so what you're wanting to look at is a bit lower. At the moment it's just straight. So it's just playing around with it. Sort of do you have a question?
Is it possible like to program the orientation of the building and how the sun will?
It is. Yeah. So I just did it the other day, but I've done it for years. I was like,
Why is it going so dark?
Because it's ray trace and there's no lights on. So it just gets dark.
And how do I turn the lights on?
I don't know if it's lights on the bottom. So
Okay, but she's looking at it.
you're not in, yeah, ray trace is render, so it uses the settings you got for rendering.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you go to realistic and you turn off the shadows.
So I'll just be back in 1 second.
No, the click is on the side.
Oh, the walkthrough tool on Revit is terrible. Just escape. Yeah. Like they're defined, so when you put line box in, you can say it's this material. So it's sort of like predefined, but you can specify what it is. Yeah, that's sort of like families. That's setting up a family to be that color, like walls and things like that. You can say, okay, so you can say, okay, or you can put in, so no way, I don't know if you would, but then you end up having like 20 times a grid when you use it. But you wouldn't necessarily specify, this is red, this is one, this is the other one. Like have that many invites. You just point change into your code, you know. Otherwise you can have the code. So that's kind of yeah. Which family sort of. There's some like there is another way like you can leave stuff by categories, so like fascia and things like that is just by category. So you can change all those in one fell swoop, but do that a bit later. Yeah.
Can I ask, so it's similar to that question, if we're using polytech or Caesar or whatever we want to use, that all pre-done in the finishes or we
I don't know about Polystech or Caesar. I know Dulux have, so Dulux have got a plugin, which allows you to choose one of their million, I don't know how many colours they've got, but it's a lot. To put like paint sort of their colours onto projects. Caesar and that, I'm not really sure. Unfortunately, I've found that it still requires a little bit of post-processing. Realistic. Tweaking things.
So if you're rendering for a client to give them some little pictures, it's just more of a gauge if they don't actually. Because I think with SketchUp you can import.
Yeah, you can import it, but it's always been. I've always found it's sort of the hardest thing is trying to find the niche that you try to copy.
Absolutely.
Like you know, and one that's good quality as well. Used to take out like that was the time killer.
All right.
So you can do it.
You just do it by yourself.
But so you know, like probably not so much for you guys, but particularly not doing my own sort of work. I just end up showing them a hidden line thing of doing because they just wanted to see what it looks like. But people that come to see you guys probably want colours and all that sort of stuff, so it's next level. There are a couple of good plugins to Revit these days that
we use Enscape.
Yeah.
At Revit, and all our fly-throughs are Enscape.
Yeah, that's what I want to. I installed it on my home PC and it's like, the graphics card is not good enough. And I'm like, damn it.
And it's actually really good.
Yeah.
It's better than Twin. Twin Motion is really good too, but it just uses so much power. Having it run an Enscape out of Revit, it's good.
Enscape's only like $900 a year too. As well. I know Lumion's the other one, and Lumion's
On the Studio Mac.
$5,000 a license. Yeah, I hope you guys got deep pockets because.
When you're paying these people $6,000 to render, it's worth having an instance.
Oh yeah. So you got your cameras? Yep, so you're on there. So just a quick aside, you can obviously rename these things as well, but we're not going to worry about it tonight because once we shut this model, we're never going to look at it again. So I'm not going to bother saving one. Yeah, cool. I would probably just like close that and do another one. Sometimes it's a bit hard to fix it. View. So. Yeah, drop down that one. And then you can sort of create it.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Before we did that view,
Yeah.
How do I get back?
We
Is
get
that still the
properties.
link?
Sorry, it's new properties, so you got a section box ticked. So we untick that, it'll get it back to come back in. If you hit apply, it'll come back in.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know that.
That's
I
yeah.
lost that bit.
No, it's easier to use. To be fair, I think two of us at work use the section box a lot, and then the other three at the moment don't. And then they get you and us crap about it. Like, why wouldn't you use it? It's there. That's how I learn it. Definitely easier when you're doing all of this stuff, like the mechanical stuff. But even for you guys, you just get like a view of the room and furniture, and you can sort of exclude all the walls and sort of thing.
Yeah.
So. It's really cool, and they will be related 6 months plus into the industry. As long as your computer's capable of running it, it's not stop.
Yeah, okay.
I go for stuff, it doesn't matter about stuff. So you can operate studies, so you guys. Some of the videos now, they're really cool. Oh, yep. So just a section box there, untick that, and that will revert it back to the original. Has anyone got any other questions? I know it's probably feeling a bit scared about what the next 7 weeks are going to entail, but you got to know a lot of. I always say you got to know how to run before you can walk in Revit. So you got to know a lot of stuff before the easy stuff seems easy. So we'll get there. Have faith.
Yeah, it's great. It's really easy. Russell. It's good because it never changes.
Why roof is not showing any wall?
Yeah,
You want roof?
Ceiling plan, yeah.
there's three.
So
Oh, it's for the roof, yeah.
So it's a little bit ahead of where. So imagine your roof is here.
Yeah, and
So your cut plane for your floor plan is set at 12. So your cut plane for your ceiling plan is set at 23. So it's not cutting anything. It won't show you anything.
Okay.
So you can imagine. So
For this element.
like the cut plane is like somewhere up here, and you're not seeing anything.
Yeah.
So it's a really hard concept to verbally get across. I always struggle with your view ranges and things like that.
Yeah.
It's just a real like.
But it does show something.
Yeah, so so your grids and all that. Just if you had 100 levels and nothing on them, they'll go all the way up. So when you set a project up and you do, let's say you're doing a 100-story building, and you set the grids up, it will just show on every floor plan.
Oh, okay.
So your grids are sort of like independent of the model. So we'll touch on grids. Probably week 3, maybe next week. Maybe.
Okay.
So we'll probably wrap it up there. That's probably enough tonight. I'll let you guys have a bit of an early minute. Does anyone, I should have mentioned this at the WHS stuff, if you would like security to walk you to your car, feel free to ask them, that's what they're here for. If you don't feel safe walking out there, particularly seeing I think we're pretty much the only ones in the campus tonight except for security. So, yeah. So I'll stop the recording there.